Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, into another YouTube live show here tonight. I am John Kurtz. Thank you for joining me. We've got college football back. We had week one, and what a week one it was in the Big 12. Unfortunately, missed a major opportunity, and that is how I want to start the show tonight, is by talking about the missed opportunity and the way that it happened, man. I mean, the Big 12 got kind of bullied by the SEC. In fact, you can remove the kind of, no kind of about it. What does it mean in terms of the ACC Big 12 battle? I've got some statistics about how the two conferences stack up, plus what Florida State did and the impact that that will have on the national college football landscape this year. The Big 12 favorites right now after week one, if you want to put it that way, they're teams that are playing old school football. All right, we'll examine that, and I'll tell you the teams that caught my eye. Plus, BYU is the team that has caught ESPN's eye. So agree or disagree, after 69 points on Portland State, that's who ESPN loves. Please do like the video as you file in, subscribe to the channel. All that stuff is great, really helps me out. And I appreciate all of you who do that. Subscribe for the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. 5,100 plus Big 12 fans who do subscribe to that twice to your inbox per week for free. And you can hit me up on Venmo, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you're not able to watch the show live, that is a way to keep up. Hit me with a question or comment there, and I will get to it on the next show. I will kick off, in fact, the next show with your question or comment on Venmo if you submit something there. So with that, we're off and running tonight, okay? I see some commentary in here from the chat that you may disagree with this premise a little bit. Feel free to let me know, and you can submit a super chat if you want to guarantee that your question or comment makes it on tonight. Click the $ below the chat box in order to do that. Look, the Big 12 blew a major opportunity for respect this weekend. I'll tell you who's to blame for that. Plus, is there any coming back from it for the Big 12 this year? All right. I told you going into the weekend, there were 5 Big 12 teams that really needed to win if you wanted to greatly increase your respect on a national scene. Now, one of those is still to play tomorrow. TCU fans that I asked on Twitter, hey, what was your biggest overreaction to week one of the Big 12? And TCU fans that said the weekend's not over. Fair enough. I get it. You're going to play tonight against North Carolina. I can't wait to watch it. All right. The other 4 teams that played, they went a combined 1-3. They went 1-3. Not what you wanted to see for the Big 12. And there was one that stood above all else, and that was Baylor and Auburn. And to me, that is obviously by far the most disappointing. It's hard to come down too hard on Colorado and Cincinnati, who were 2 of the other teams. Valiant efforts. I thought Colorado looked a little bit ahead of where I figured they would be. And Cincinnati just tried to grind that thing out against Nebraska, a Nebraska team that should be much better. Okay, so I'll have more on them in a moment. But Baylor, man, as somebody who bought in hard on the Baylor hype this offseason, bought in hard on the Sawyer Robertson hype this offseason. This is not a loss to blame on Sawyer Robertson losing by a couple of scores to Auburn, but it was disappointing in totality how it happened, because it's not just that Baylor lost. It's that Baylor lost while getting pushed around. I mean, they got bullied. And when you're playing a team from the SEC, what is the average college football fan going to think? The average college football fan is going to think, oh, well, it's a team from the SEC. They will be certainly a lot better in the trenches. They'll have better athletes. They'll be able to just sort of bully their way through it. I saw somebody, I don't even remember who, but an SEC media member tweet leading up to the game, hey, don't overthink this, okay? It's an SEC roster going up against a Big 12 team. Yes, you can hyperanalyze, I'm paraphrasing at this point, but you can hyperanalyze Jackson Arnold, what he was last year, Hugh Freeze, all this stuff. Don't overthink it. SEC roster playing a Big 12 roster. And that, as a Big 12 guy, you know, that hit me where I'm like, man, I kind of want to go after that a little bit. But you know what? That guy was right. I mean, that's the harsh reality of how that game looked. That's what it was. It was an SEC roster that came in and pushed Baylor around. Guys, Auburn rushed for 307 yards. 307 yards. That's the most that Baylor has given up in 7 years. Okay? 307 yards. Now, do I think that's a bad Auburn team? Do I think that's another 5-7 Auburn team? I do not. I think Auburn is better than that. Are they a middle of the pack SEC team? I mean, the odds are still more likely yes than no. that's still a pretty middle of the pack SEC team that just did that to a team that I had in the Big 12 championship game. We can disagree on that, but it's a team that's probably in the top tier of Big 12 teams that you have, and it was at home. And yes, you did have it against Jackson Arnold, a quarterback who struggled mightily last year. Baylor got outrushed 307-64. So exactly where you would think that an SEC team would dominate a Big 12 team up front. That's exactly what happened. Baylor couldn't run the ball. As good as Bryson Washington was last year, Baylor could not run the ball consistently, and Auburn had it whenever they wanted, and they had it whenever they wanted with their quarterback too. I mean, that was really the thing. Like Jackson Arnold, as much as I hated on him, I mean, I feel very silly because I was very critical of Jackson Arnold and felt very strongly this is why Baylor would win the game. Jackson Arnold's legs were the difference in the game. He rushed for over 130 yards, man. And was it the stat? 6 of his 16 carries went for 10-plus yards. He was just gashing them. You know, Jackson Arnold was absolutely gashing Baylor the entire night. I think Baylor's offense is going to be fine. 24 points is not overwhelming. They went for 6 fourth downs in the game. Riverboat Dave was in full effect in that game. But, I still Sawyer Robertson hit 400 again. Like Sawyer Robertson, I still think is a very effective quarterback. Michael Trigg looked awesome. I was looking at that guy like, well, where did this dude come from at tight end? Kobe Prentice, Caden Knighton. Like, I think Baylor's got weapons. The offense should be fine in the Big 12, and they may still well be fine in the Big 12 overall and compete for a Big 12 championship. That may be bad news for the league, though, if that's the case, because that type of a team, if Baylor really is that type of a team, they couldn't stand up against what may be like, Auburn looks like 8-4 SEC team to me, maybe right now. It's tough to know. Look, it's week 1. Everyone's going to overreact about things. So I will give some caution there, and I'm trying not to overreact too much. But where you can't overreact is in stating the missed opportunity here. Baylor may get better. Baylor may look better by week 8. Maybe they would stack up better against Auburn by that point in the year. Maybe, as I'm seeing all the comments here, hey, man, Utah looked great. Utah looked great. Iowa State looks great. That's awesome. But Iowa State doesn't get to play Auburn. Utah is not going to go up against Alabama next week. Like, you don't get those opportunities. Baylor had one for the Big 12, didn't take advantage, and got bullied in the process. As far as Baylor's chances to contend, I mean, defense is still going to have to get better. I keep thinking Dave Aranda is going to get back to at least having an average defense. I don't know. Now, with Baylor down and out, you could have regained some face by having Colorado or Cincy spring an upset, right? You're playing Big Ten in one case, ACC in another, so a little bit different, perhaps, the Big Ten versus the ACC, but either one would have really helped, and damn it if Brendan Sorsby wasn't this close to willing Cincinnati to that win over Nebraska that would have helped you save some face as a conference. I mean, that last drive, he's going down the field, and I'm like, dude, they're getting at least a field goal. They're going to get to overtime, and they're going to put so much game pressure on a Nebraska team and program that continues to lose close games. Yes, they made a bowl game last year, but Nebraska still lost 5 of their 6 games by 1 possession or less. So the more that you can put that kind of game pressure on Nebraska, the more that you have a better chance of them wilting based on what that program has been. And with 69 passing yards in the game, Brendan Sorsby damn near did it. But he needed at least like 25 more because that last pass that got intercepted. Not much help from his receiver on that one, admittedly, and maybe not the best call to go up against a pretty strong Nebraska secondary at that stage when you seem to be trending toward being able to kick a field goal at least. A couple turnovers really killed Cincinnati. The turnover at the end of the first half, too, the fumble there combined with the interception late. I mean, I think that's really your ball game. Since he's scrappy, I mean, Brendan Sorsby's scrappy and tough. They got a long ways to go if they want to be like a Big 12 contender, but that showed me that, look, I would have questioned a bit Cincy's toughness and scrappiness and where they were, because it felt like they just kind of lied down on the season last year on the back end to finish 5-7 after a nice start. That'd be encouraging to me if I were a Cincy fan. I don't think Nebraska is great. That looks like a 7-5 Nebraska team if I've ever seen one, and we've seen a lot of Nebraska teams at about that level over the last 10 to 15 years. But again, missed opportunity. Cincy could have turned some heads if you get that win over a Nebraska team that some had been picking as a dark horse playoff team and you did it against a 95% partisan crowd for the Huskers at Arrowhead, but nobody is giving you credit for close. It's not horseshoes or hand grenades. It's obviously not even as high profile a game nearly as last year when Arizona State came close to Texas. We know how that goes. Not getting a parade for that. And same for Colorado with Georgia Tech. Same for Colorado and Georgia Tech. Colorado, look, the bottom line, Colorado's got to take more advantage of 3 first quarter turnovers. Like, that was a Georgia Tech team that turned it over 10 times the entire year last year, or maybe it was Haynes King had only turned it over 10 times the entire year last year. Either way, they give you 3 in the first quarter. You only get 7 points out of the deal. It's got to be more than that. It's got to be more than that. And Colorado's, the offense is much different this year. You knew it would be. Caden Salter, it's going to be more having to utilize his legs. He can't stand back there and pick you apart, throwing dots like Shedeur could. But more so in the Colorado offense, this is kind of the same story as the Baylor game. Like, Colorado just got bullied by Haynes King, who was doing his best Colin Klein impression really out there. Just battered and bruised, and I don't think Georgia Tech can probably do that the entire year, but week 1, you can certainly get away with it. He rushed for $156, 3 touchdowns. Georgia Tech had 320 yards on the ground in the game. And so, look, Colorado's defense is going to have to be better than that, but Haynes King is also, he's a tough SOB. Georgia Tech is a program on the rise for a reason. Colorado, I thought there was a chance Colorado could get run. I thought there was a chance Colorado could get run in that game. They at least showed some real fortitude, stuck in the game. I did see someone take a rip at Deion's clock management, which is totally fair. I mean, it was bad. I was disappointed to see him in the post-game press conference not really take much responsibility for that. Kind of like shrugged it off. Like, why is that a question? Well, I mean, it's a question because it was bad clock management. You cost yourself 20 or 30 seconds. When you take over with over a minute left and you run just a couple plays and then you're having to take heaves at the end zone at the end, like, come on, Deion. You got to be a little bit better than that. That's okay. Deion gets too much crap for a lot of things that aren't all that legitimate. That was a very legit criticism coming at him that I wish he would have handled better. So, yeah, that's the story of the Big 12 weekend. There's your 3 losses in big games that the league really needed. Now, Utah won, and Utah pummeled a Big 10 team in UCLA. I'm going to talk a lot about Utah later. Utah looked as good as you could have possibly expected this thing was going to look with Devin Dampier this year. So, sky-high optimism for Utah. I won't really calm anybody down after week 1 if you want to go sky-high with the optimism on the Utes and how they looked. So it was not all bad for the Big 12, but the most high-profile moments, especially the most high-profile moment, Baylor was very disappointing. And you can say I'm being unfair, overreacting to 1 week. But again, this is all about what are the opportunities that you get, and that's where I want to go next with this. Because the ACC, who you are directly competing with for that number 3 spot right now in terms of conference hierarchy, they did get an opportunity that they took advantage of just this weekend, a very similar one. Okay. I see all you jokesters, by the way. Click the $sign below the chat box if you want to ensure that your question or comment makes it on tonight. But I see all you jokesters trying to get me to talk about a K-State game against North Dakota. Who wants to lead in like the A block of the show here talking about K-State, North Dakota? Okay. Nobody cares about that game. Nobody's paying attention to that game at all. All right. It doesn't matter. We don't need to talk about it. Okay. It's fine. I was there. I was in the press box. I witnessed the whole thing. All right. I get it. I understand. K-State almost lost to North Dakota. Not a great look for the league either. And unfortunately, that game, had to be pulled out of the fire late. And so people were tweeting about it. It did land on the radar. That's not helping the Big 12 either. But like, you win a game against an FCS team, people aren't going to be pointing back to that at the end of the season, right? If you're trying to make an argument for the Big 12 at some point later in the year, they might point back to, well, you had a shot against Auburn. Auburn wound up being 7-5, and Baylor got thumped by them early on. Okay, that's why K-State's not included there. Don't you worry. I will get to K-State a little bit later on. All right. I promise you I will. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. All that stuff really helps. I appreciate everybody who does that. And please do subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter as well, ofbnews.com to do that. That's ofbnews.com. Really helps me out. Great way to support what I'm trying to do here. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you want to contribute there and leave a question or comment. I will kick off the next show with it so that you can still be a part of the conversation. Okay. Well, in the race for third place in conference supremacy, the Big 12 definitely fell behind the ACC. It took just 1 week. And the ACC's got firm control of that after Saturday because the Big 12 missed its big opportunities, especially Baylor, and because Florida State beat Alabama. And I mean, I really think it's about as simple as that. Whether you like it or not, whether you think it's fair or not, I mean, that's what people are going to remember. And the fact that Florida State even exists is what a lot of people will tell you would keep the ACC above the Big 12. The fact that Clemson exists, even if they lost at home to LSU this weekend, would keep them above the Big 12. And yes, I understand all of that, but we consistently get good numbers on this, okay? And Jeff Fuller does a great job of keeping track of a lot of this conference strength, what Massey and other computer rankings have to say about all of it. I mean, it very consistently ranks the Big 12 ahead of the ACC. I'm going to get to his latest numbers, but how much does it really matter when Bama goes down at the hands of Florida State and the Noles are drawing headlines? Florida State team that went through just absolute hell last year. So the ACC has all the juice it needs now, man. Florida State, they won the game, and kudos to, man, FSU looked fun, dude. Thomas Castellanos, that guy is fun. And when you couple it with, he also was the one out there that called his shot, said, hey, Nick Saban isn't going to be there to come save those guys. Backed it up then, like stood on that at ACC Media Days, and then went out there and performed and won the game. That's about as good as it gets, okay? Shout out to my guy TJ at Double Fries No Slaw and College Football Addiction. Can only imagine the weekend that he had. I saw him tweeting in all caps a whole bunch. That tells you how it goes. Usually a very good thing or a very bad thing. I think we know which side that goes, which side that goes on this weekend. Look, it was great. Huge opportunity and a very similar one, right? How different are Bama and Auburn actually going to be this year? You think there's a ton of gap between Bama and Auburn? Bama fans won't want to hear that. I think there's a ton of gap between Bama and Auburn based on what we've seen from Kalen DeBoer, Bama, and what Auburn looked like against Baylor week 1. Might not be that much of a difference. But in name, there certainly is a difference there. Bama is doing more for you than Auburn is right now, and you go beat them and you throw them around week 1 in your home stadium as a double-digit underdog. You beat them by double digits. Yeah, man, huge feather in the cap of the ACC. Doesn't even matter. Yes, LSU wins at Clemson. Who cares? You beat Bama. Well, I'm seeing you guys talk a little bit about Miami right now. I saw Miami go up on Notre Dame, regardless of what happens in that game. This will be one that people remember, man. Florida State knocking off Bama. You go get one of those big dogs. You get one of those top 5 to 10 programs in the country. It's going to do so much more of the heavy lifting when it comes to people's perception, when it comes to how the playoff committee is going to treat things. And that's because we are in a college football world, all right? Not a specific meritocracy. We are in the college football world, which is a beauty pageant. That's the currency that really, truly matters. And my question would be, like, when's the last time the Big 12 did that? You know, you get these shots, you get these big moments, and Arizona State can't get the 4th and 13 stop on Texas, and they lose in the college football playoff. K-State plays well early in the Sugar Bowl against Alabama and then gets run. TCU, we all know how that national championship game against Georgia went, which is, you know, carrying so much of the narrative still here 3 years later. All right. Big 12 needs to get one of those to start registering a little bit more nationally, or else this fight is just going to get tougher and tougher. You know, I love how much the Big 12 fights for itself from a narrative standpoint. I saw my guy Clark at the Big 12, the comms director, they're tweeting some good stats about how the Big 12 performed this weekend, had 8 teams that won by 40 plus, something like that. It was a record. I mean, they had some good numbers on that. They're trying, they're doing what they can, but you can do all of that you want if people don't actually watch your squads go out there and beat SEC and or Big Ten teams, especially the teams that are the national championship caliber brands, it's just not going to matter all that much, man. It's just not going to matter all that much. So the ACC took advantage of one of its swings. Now, does the ACC get more swings and more bites at the apple because of those big brands? Yes, they do. Once again, college football, not a meritocracy, not fair, kind of a reflection of life, not totally fair. But, Clemson can go out and get one of those games against a big boy. Florida State can go out and get one of those games against a big boy and get them to come to their place. Miami can go out and get one of those games against Notre Dame and get them to come to their place. Like the tougher to get those home and homes if you're a Big 12 team. Baylor got one, didn't take advantage. I assume that's a home and home. I actually have no legit knowledge of what that contract looks like, right? But you've got to come through. You've got to come through. The ACC already had we saw how much of a perception edge that it had last year when it just came to college football playoff, what the committee was viewing as who the strongest teams were for contention for the last playoff spot last year. When BYU was nowhere to be found, Miami was somehow right in the thick of it, even though BYU had objectively a better resume. Everyone's thinking, well, the ACC's a better league. They got the better brands, and now they can point to, well, Florida State beat Bama. And, they get more opportunities to do it. Big 12 doesn't get as many, so you got to connect when you have them. Still, obviously, Arizona State matters more than anything. The game against Texas was brutal. I mean, that was brutal that they didn't come through. But you do have – now, can it change? All right, that's the other question I teased at the beginning of this. Can it change? There's one chance, okay? There's one real chance left. Maybe a little bit more. I don't want to undersell. Hey, if Kansas goes in and spanks Mizzou this weekend, that'd be awesome. If Iowa State beats Iowa and does it soundly, which, I mean, it still looks like Iowa has not found an offense, as much as everybody raved about that quarterback transfer they had this offseason. Those definitely help. But the big one, you guys know what it is, and it sucks because they're going to be going shorthanded, as it seems like they always do in the last year or two. But Oklahoma State's at Oregon this week. I don't know if you paid attention to that. Oklahoma State's going to be in Autzen. I say this like almost cringing because I'm like, I don't know what that's going to look like, my friends. Haas Haney was looking pretty damn good at quarterback and then broke a bone in his foot and is going to be out for like a month plus. So check on your friends in Stillwater, please. That is tough. I mean, if they were to somehow beat Oregon, that would probably matter more than what Baylor could have done against Auburn. But what are the odds of that happening? I'm assuming nobody thinks that it's a very high likelihood that is going to turn out the way that the Big 12 would like it to. So that's it. I mean, this is another big week. I just rattled off 3 games there. Iowa State, Iowa, Kansas, Mizzou. One game that you absolutely cannot lose. Arizona State must beat Mississippi State. You're not gaining a whole lot from that one this week, but they must avoid losing that game for sure, or you will get crushed. But that's your chance, man. That's your chance. And just to knock this point home, I mentioned that Jeff Fuller does a great job with these statistics about the conferences. I'll see how well I can get this to actually pop up. Sometimes it can be a little bit hard. But so Jeff has this graph where the little plots are all these different conferences, right? And so you see the ACC and the Big 12 here, very similar. The ACC has some teams lower in terms of their overall strength, right? So you can see the bottom end of the ACC is lower than the Big 12, but what do they have? Everything's like the same, a little bit lower on the ACC, but bam, bam, up top, they've got 1, 2. They've got a couple brands. They've got a couple squads that are a little bit higher up than the Big 12, and those are doing all the heavy lifting. And Florida State did a ton of that on Saturday. Even, if you want to back up all your opinions about the Big 10, look at the freaking Big 10 here with 3 teams down on the lower end of that tail. Like, horrible. But they've got the teams up here on the high end, right? So that matters quite a bit. Good stuff from Jeff. I appreciate him showing that to me and therefore us. his point is there's a much bigger gap between the Power 4 and the G6 as opposed to the Big 12 and then the Big 10 and the SEC, which is fair, but you can do all that you want. This is kind of like the stats that I was mentioning the Big 12 putting out there. You can do all of this that you want, but when you don't have Ohio State or you don't have Florida State going out and beating Alabama, it's just going to fall on deaf ears for the most part at the end of the day. So anyway, Big 12 will get some opportunity in the playoff in all overwhelming likelihood this year. They'll get a chance with Oklahoma State going to Autzen this weekend. They'll also have a shot for Kansas and Iowa State to do the Big 12 some good as well. But that's kind of the state of the two conference race right now as you jockey for third, as I see it. All right. Let's say hello to Alan. If you want to be like Alan, click the $ below the chat box in order to submit a super chat. Get your question or comment on the show tonight. Alan says, John, Mizzou may have an SEC roster, but KU has Lance Leipold and a Big 12 roster. Plus, Jayhawk fans have fewer felonies than Mizzou fans. Glad K-State pulled it out. KU is on its way to 10 wins. Rock Chalk Jayhawk Allen. Yeah, tough to take much from the KU game this week. I mean, they played Wagner and I think trying to make sure that they're keeping guys healthy. Had some players that were a little bit beat up out of week one. So hard to take a whole lot there. Now, a couple other Big 12 teams were in that situation that I want to talk about later in Texas Tech and BYU. But they were just so overwhelmingly dominant. I think it was a little bit different, but it's hard to complain with anything Kansas has done so far this year. And a fascinating game in Lawrence. Plus, just a great game, a celebration of college football game. And what drives me nuts is that College Game Day, Josh Pate's tour, all these places are going to Oklahoma, Michigan next week, which is not, obviously not surprising or shocking in any way, but the game that represents what is great about college football and what everybody loves about the sport, like why it is such a unique and great sport, it's Kansas-Mizzou. You should be at that game. That is a rivalry that has roots back to the Civil freaking War, okay? So much hatred between those schools for that game. So much sports hatred in that goes all the way back to when they were fighting about slavery, right? I mean, it's crazy. And then it's a game that hasn't been played in so long on the football field that you're renewing it for the first time in forever. They're both programs that have been on the rise lately. Yes, Kansas last year had a bit of a disappointing season, but the trend line of the last 3 or 4 years for both of those programs, way up. I would love to have the ability to make decisions for any of the big pregame shows and say, man, go check out KU Mizzou. That's where you should be on Saturday. That would be amazing. Somebody give me, this is the dream, have a traveling show that I could take wherever I want it, best Big 12 game or whatever it's going to be every single week. I would be at KU Mizzou for sure. Really looking forward to that one. Alan, appreciate you being here, my friend. Thank you for being here. Okay, I forgot to load this video up before the show, so bear with me here. But you guys know the drill now. Games are coming up. Games are happening. If you're looking to buy tickets to any college football game coming up, make sure that you are doing it through SeatGeek. And if you have never bought tickets before on SeatGeek, I've got a hookup for you. Just use promo code Kurtz and get $20 off your first order. All right, here's a little bit more. Football season is here, guys, and that means we all need to find good deals on tickets. All right, and the best place to do that is SeatGeek. I have to give a huge shout out to SeatGeek, the sponsor of today's video. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are over 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek. So obviously college football is covered, but if you're a music guy like me, it's perfect for concerts. I'm buying a ton of concert tickets this fall. And I tell you what, I have my eye on those Holy War tickets for BYU and Utah coming up as well. And man, all you got to do is open up the app. It's perfect. You can go check what's going on here, find the green dots in the seat. That means they're good deals. Red dots, maybe not so much, but SeatGeek will help you find the best deals on seats depending on where it is that you are trying to sit. They're each rated on a scale of 1 to 10. Every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And you guys know I'm here for you. I've got a code for you. Code Kurtz gets you $20 off your tickets. Again, that's code Kurtz for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. $20 off your first purchase with promo code Kurtz. Make sure you just click the link in the description to download the app and have that code on hand and ready to go. Guys, I'm here to help you out. I've got your back. Hit up my friends at SeatGeek. You heard the man. SeatGeek, promo code Kurtz. Thank you, John. Now back to you, John. Oh, thank you very much. All right. Please like the video. Subscribe to the channel. Click the $sign below the chat box to submit a super chat. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo to submit a question or comment there as well. And subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com. Now we're going to talk about what went well in the Big 12, okay? Because to me, there are really three teams that came out of this week with me looking like, okay, here's your upper crust. And then two teetering on that, I would say. All right. In a world of transferring players, NIL money, skill position players ruling the world, the Big 12 at the top is ruled by some old school toughness, man. It's like old school grit, toughness, power, smash mouth football that has been as impressive as any other school in the Big 12 so far from a couple of different squads in the Big 12. All right. And let me start on behalf of the league by issuing a sincere thank you to Utah, because that was much needed. After the Baylor loss, after Cincinnati couldn't quite pull it out, after Colorado couldn't take advantage of 3 first quarter fumbles by Georgia Tech, Utah went and dropped the freaking hammer on UCLA, which frankly they should. Because if I were going to tell you, hey, what I want for you to do is to give me two teams on complete opposite ends of the spectrum on the toughness scale as a program, what would those two teams be that you could deliver to me? I feel like Utah v. UCLA is about as good as you could possibly do it. That is about as stark a contrast as you could find in terms of toughness. And obviously they're familiar with each other from the Pac-12 days, but man, Utah went out, and if you are somebody that bought into Devin Dampier is going to make all the difference, they will still have a great defense. As always, Kyle Whittingham is not washed. He very much still has gas left in the tank. All you need to do is bust out a tape of this game and show it to somebody. And there's your proof of concept right there. It looked that good for Utah, 43-10 over UCLA. Utah had, if I gave you one stat from this game, Utah had more rushing yards than UCLA had total yards. Okay? That's all you need to know about this game. Utah had more rushing yards than UCLA had total yards. UCLA had under 250 yards of total offense in the game. I picked this up live. I've since gone back and watched most of it, but I picked this up live when Utah was in the middle of a 20-play, 9-minute touchdown drive that was capped off with a 4th and goal run by Devin Dampier. I mean, that is like chef's kiss. That's what I want out of Utah football. I want 20-play, 9-minute touchdown drives. And it's not even, they don't even go that slow like a lot of the offense. It had a pretty quick pace to it. You know, they were trying to establish some real no huddle throughout a lot of that game. But while they're doing this, Utah, by the way, is weaving in defensive players playing on offense. Smith Snowden had a huge role in that. But like three two-way players for Utah, like that's Kyle Whittingham, dude. Like finding ways to milk the most out of that roster, and just a bunch of tough son of a guns that are going out there and punishing UCLA, controlling. Whittingham said it after the game. He's like, you do not have a 20-play, 9-minute drive if you're not just controlling things up front. Utah's got 2 potential first-round draft picks on that offensive line. Like, we know that they are good. I mean, they went out and just delivered. And Devin Dampier, you know, I saw all the comps on Twitter of people saying, like, this guy looks like Kyler Murray. I mean, it is kind of unmistakable, like, just from a physical stature standpoint and how he moves and runs around. I definitely see the comp there. If you're going to say, hey, this guy looks like Kyler Murray. He threw the ball very well. He was 21 of 25, 202 yards, couple touchdowns. He rushed for 87 and a score. I mean, that is That's what you wanted him to look like if you were Utah. He is not Drew Brees, Peyton Manning. He's not standing back there and just like picking you apart with his arm. I think that much was apparent when you look at the numbers from last year where he was a 12 touchdown, 12 pick guy. But if things are working well enough on the ground where you're controlling things up front, the running game is being very effective, and obviously you have to worry about Dampier's legs, then that just opens up a lot of wide open receivers and tight ends or, defensive backs or linebackers, whoever Kyle Whittingham is throwing out there. It makes them much more wide open. You don't have to be pinpoint guy back there just throwing dots. That's what it felt like to me as I was watching this game, is like Dampier has guys that are pretty open, and that makes it a lot easier for somebody who may not have the most accurate arm in the world to drop it in there, and he's plenty competent enough to do that. I mean, he definitely showed that in the game. So I could not have been more impressed. Look, UCLA is not a world beater. Nico Iamaleava, I guess if you want to say one thing in defense of UCLA is like, hey, if Nico Iamaleava doesn't overshoot, the guy kind of ran like the seam ball through the middle of the field on their first drive, or it was like 6-0 at that point, I think, Utah. And he just overshot him, probably was going to be a touchdown. What happens if UCLA gets that and maybe they don't get their dauber down as much early in the game? They don't fall behind 20-0. I don't think that was making too much of a difference. That'd be maybe the only thing you could turn back around. Everything else from Utah overwhelmed UCLA, looked great. Same story for Iowa State. Another one of these. Now they're a little bit different here in that Iowa State, the bulk of the offense in the Rocco Becht era has been him throwing it around the yard. And that was definitely true again in a 55-7 win over South Dakota. But they're still, that's a tough team. That's still more like an old school toughness team. They're gonna win with guys that are going to have more of a chip and more of an edge than you. And that's what that game was very emblematic of to me. Because, all right, here you go, guys. Everybody who was saying, I need to talk about K-State. K-State did not handle the travel from Ireland well. Clearly, they've got a million problems, that being one of them, and they damn near lost to North Dakota at home. Iowa State played a better FCS team, South Dakota, who actually won the Missouri Valley last year, the powerhouse FCS conference, and they won 55-7. Okay? That's all I need to know about like what kind of locker room, what kind of dudes, what kind of program, what kind of culture Matt Campbell has. Now I can tell you all these things. Rocco Becht threw for 278 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was 19 of 20. He completed his first 14 passes. 11 of those completions went to tight ends. That's, it's all very, it's very Iowa State-y. It was great. South Dakota, as I mentioned, is for an FCS team, that's a pretty tough one. Pretty salty FCS team, and they just wallop them. To me, that's like a culture win for Iowa State, and this is why, I feel like I've seen enough out of Iowa State right now to say that I think they're going to be there in the Big 12 title race until the end of the year. Rocco Becht is a dude. He makes plays when you need him to make them the most. They're going to consistently bring it every single week. I don't worry about their culture and taking a week off, that sort of thing with them. They look very, very sharp and very good. So those are the two. Along with, I'm gonna float Texas Tech in here. Okay, now BYU fans, Kansas fans, TCU fans, even because I haven't seen your team yet this year. If you want to have a little bit of beef with that, I'll listen to it. I'm going to talk more about BYU in just a moment. But Texas Tech in Arkansas Pine Bluff is not good. Okay, that is not a good FCS team. I understand they were just completely overwhelmed in this game. But Texas Tech looked like the freaking Monstars playing the Toon Squad early on in that game, right? They looked like a bunch of guys that looked like an SEC-ish kind of roster that was out there just destroying somebody. I don't think you should really make any big sweeping conclusions other than I would just say, okay, the eye test, Texas Tech looks the part. All right, that defensive line looks the part from the eye test from what I could see on Saturday. They won 67-7, by the way, against Arkansas Pine Bluff. That's not the big headline from the game. The big headline from the game is that there was a hyperextended knee for Baron Morton. I don't think like this specific injury is going to be a huge deal to Texas Tech season. I do think there's reason to wonder about Baron Morton's durability throughout the rest of the year. Last year, I know that wasn't really a problem, but throughout his career, that has been an issue at times. So I'd be a little bit leery about that. I mean, it certainly doesn't trigger great feelings in me, but no reason to panic yet. But there is reason to say, all right, man, like that Tech roster, like I've now seen it out on a football field against another team that's trying to win a game. I mean, that Tech roster looks pretty good to my eyeballs. Whether or not they can come through, I don't know. But that to me feels like cream of the crop based on what I have seen so far in the Big 12. Now, week 1 is just all about overreactions, period. Okay, that's how this works. Oh, we overreact far too much. I think there's a danger in that, but there's also something fun about indulging in the overreaction. So I asked on Twitter, at JL Kurtz, what is your biggest week 1 Big 12 overreaction? And I want to respond and react to some of those that you guys gave me here in just a moment. But first, let's pop into to chat with Pacific Northwest Ute. If you would like to drop me a line, make sure your question or comment gets in tonight. Click the $ below the chat box in order to do that. Appreciate everybody who does. Do like the video. Subscribe to the channel while you're there. Totally free ways to support. Pacific Northwest Ute says, defense continues to score for the Utes as Beck borrowed CB Snowden and linebacker Barton for 1 TD each. Poor man's Travis Hunter is, well, I mean, that was my first thought. I was like, the Big 12 is certainly putting its stamp on the two-way player after winning the Heisman last year with Travis Hunter and now seeing Utah do it with a couple of different dudes in week 1 out at UCLA. Dampier wasn't feared because they couldn't get to him. Fear the Fanos, 2. That's, Dampier, that's when the offense is functioning like that for Utah and they're getting that much of a push and they're running, like, and you can work off a play action with Dampier. They just have to respect his legs anytime he's back. Like, you're going to get receivers that are more open. Well, I'm sure there will come a game this year where coverage is going to be tighter. It will be more difficult on Dampier, and we'll see if he can protect the ball. But against a Big Ten team, against a Power 4 team, the early return sure looked excellent for the way that he performed. That seemed like a best case scenario of what I thought Devin Dampier might be able to be this year, what he was on Saturday. And yeah, Whittingham, to your point about the two-way guys and the defensive players playing, I mean, that to me is the type of thing that's like, I guess, I don't know, maybe Utah fans, you can tell me more specifically if there's been reporting on where that idea came from, if you're going to credit Whittingham or not. But that to me says like, no, Whittingham is not done. Like, that's not a dude who's done and ready to just hang it up and cash it in and like all the magic is gone. Like, if he's finding ways to do that and get guys, utilize all the nooks and crannies of his roster that way to be throwing guys out there playing two ways right now, I think that tells me Whittingham's still got a lot left in the tank here. So I'd be very, very encouraged by that. Pacific Northwest Ute, thank you for your contributions tonight. David, what's up, David? David says Big 12 has one more to go. Predictions on TCU, North Carolina. I mean, I would pick TCU to win the game. I have just felt like this Belichick thing is going to be pretty rocky. I hesitate to say disaster. One, because I think it's in large part the same sort of deal as what happened last year or 2 years ago, whatever, with Coach Prime, with Dion. People being like, oh, it'll be a total abject disaster. And it obviously has not been. And I think we have a tendency to like get distracted by some of the TMZ-ness of both of those hires or a hire of that ilk. Look, Bill Belichick, there's a reason that the guy is considered arguably the greatest coach of all time in the NFL. Like, he's got some coaching chops. Whether or not he's got a 25-year-old distracting girlfriend running around, he still knows how to coach football. Whether or not the college football game is a little bit different, and there's different nuances there, and those guys don't have as much time to digest game plan throughout the week and all that, he still is a guy that won 6 Super Bowls. Okay? So, like, I don't think it'll be a total disaster, but I don't have this feeling like it's going to be overwhelmingly great. And I do think TCU is pretty salty this year. And look, I'm a Big 12 homer, so sue me. I'm going to pick TCU. That'd be my prediction on it, David. Close game, it'd be a road test. Going to be a lot of eyeballs on that game, a lot of hoopla. It will feel like a really big deal, but I think TCU handles it and wins. Slam dunk home the end of the weekend there for the Big 12. BR James, what's up, BR James? John, you didn't have much to say on the post game last night. Is that a reference to the 3-Ma podcast? I felt like I had a lot to say on the 3-Ma podcast. Don't ask me about K-State special teams, my friends. I'll tell you that much. That's all I feel like I did last night on our 3-Ma post game was just rant and rave about K-State and yet another poor special teams performance. So I don't know if that's just ribbing me that I didn't do if you're wondering why do I not do a Big 12 show after that, it's because I have to do the K-State podcast. We do a live post game there for that. So if you do, subscribe to 3-Ma if you guys want your immediate K-State reaction and you want to have some schadenfreude at K-State fans after barely beating North Dakota or losing to Iowa State, make sure you get on that action. But if it's a commentary on what I actually said during the show, I don't know. I was tired and cranky. I was running on fumes. I was not having much sympathy for anything K-State football related last night. But BR James, I appreciate you being here. And thank you for your contribution. Okay, hot take time. All right. So like I said, week 1, great time to not overreact. All right. Teams will be different in week 8 than they are in week 1. It's dangerous to draw sweeping conclusions right now, but it's also very fun. It's also very fun to indulge in a bunch of hot takes and overreactions from what you saw in week 1. And perhaps, because we're in the Big 12, week 0 as well, because you had some teams play in there. But I asked you on Twitter, what are your week 1 overreactions from the Big 12? And boy, howdy, out of the 80 responses that I got to this, there were some good ones. So let's break some of these down. I'm going to start with my guy, Kuz. You guys should all go subscribe to his channel, Kuz's Corner. And I should get rid of that and make sure that this... Oh, why do you do this to me? Why do you do this to me? Here we go. All right, my guy Kuz. The Big 12 is loaded with mediocre teams. I wouldn't see. To me, that is an overreaction. Now, and I'm the guy that titled the video that the Big 12 got bullied. I mean, I think that's very true in the most important game of the weekend, and in one of the other most important games of the weekend, 2 of the 3, it happened because Georgia Tech basically bullied Colorado into submission, and Auburn certainly did that to Baylor. But we also saw what Utah did. We've seen what Iowa State has done. You have teams like Texas Tech, Kansas, BYU that so far have been totally dominant. If you want to abstain those because of who they played, that is totally fair. But I would just submit to you Utah and Iowa State then and say, I certainly don't think it's fair to classify either of those 2 teams as mediocre yet based on what we have seen this year. So I get where you're coming from for sure, Kuz. There is a lot that looks kind of blonde, mediocre. You had 2 teams struggling to beat FCS squads because UCF barely got away with a win against Jacksonville State, same as K-State with North Dakota. But I would not go quite that far. I would not go quite that far yet. All right, I told you guys that I was going to have to address K-State here, all right? And I have a couple times already, but this was the big one I was saving for you. Raider tie. UCF and K-State will both go 2-10. I mean, I think that's an overreaction probably on both. I think UCF will still be able to jump up and get somebody. I mean, Jacksonville State, this will be more of a point to sort of come at K-State. Jacksonville State won their league last year. Jacksonville, ask West Virginia fans about that. Jacksonville State there's not as much shame in that, especially when you turned over as much of the roster as UCF did. I don't think either team is going 2-10. K-State, I've seen that, I got a lot of that. K-State's going to be the next Oklahoma State. I got a lot of that in the responses to this. K-State has had some bad non-conference performances under Chris Kleiman before. They lost to Tulane at home when the offense looked like an abject disaster, and they wound up winning the Big 12 later that year. K-State's lost to Arkansas State. Then they immediately went on the road and beat Oklahoma right after that in 2020 under Chris Kleiman. And even that year with a bunch of COVID issues, I mean, they still won 4 games. Like, I think that is an overreaction. But if you do want to say right now you'd rank K-State last in Big 12 power rankings, I'm not going to fight you on that. I would not argue with you on that at all. Now, this is sort of my way to have some fun with this. To turn this back around. Manhattan Hell. Iowa State's very bad. They struggled for a bit with K-State. How good can the Cyclones possibly be? They struggled with that K-State team. Again, obviously we're having some fun here. We're talking overreactions, people. Overreactions. I think Iowa State has looked great. Here was your K-State as this year's Okie State. I think more would have to fall totally apart for that to happen. The thing for Oklahoma State last year was just never getting any kind of consistency at quarterback. I would definitely say right now that Avery Johnson does not appear to me, based on what he has shown so far in his career, to be a guy that really just like has it, like the ability to go be decisive and make big plays in big moments. He's got a lot of athleticism, a lot of ability. He's had some games with big stat lines. I mean, if you look at his stat line from Saturday, he threw for like 360 yards, but a lot of empty calories. He had 6 turnover-worthy plays, according to PFF, and none of them turned into turnovers. So against a Big 12 team, that's probably like a 3-turnover game for Avery Johnson. There's something missing, man. This decisiveness, being able to make the correct reads. It still seems like he struggles with some of that. But I don't think it's like what Oklahoma State's quarterback situation was last year with just rotating guys, limp noodle arm, Alan Bowman. I don't think it's quite that. I think Avery Johnson has shown more than that. And I think that would be the biggest thing that would keep it from turning into a 3-9 kind of year. Let's say hello to Mars. Mars says the Holy War will determine one of the Big 12's championship game teams. This, I actually agree with the commenters. I don't know that that's really a huge overreaction after week 1. I don't think that's really a huge overreaction at all. Both of those teams look pretty good. Now, BYU played a very bad FCS team. Portland State is not good at all. So I don't want to get out over my skis with that. But Bear Bachmeier, with what they asked him to do, looked good. The defense sure looked awesome, and they scored on special teams again. I mean, BYU, much like Texas Tech, kind of looked the part of like, okay, like eyeballs, I know it's a terrible team, but like that looks like a team that's pretty damn good and that they've got a lot going on for them. Regardless of how poor the opponent was, they just completely mowed them down. And obviously you guys have heard an extended soliloquy on what I thought Utah did and how impressive that was on Saturday at UCLA. Let's go. Let's get in U of A real quick. Arizona will be this year's Arizona State. It's definitely an overreaction right now based on what we saw, but I did want to take this opportunity to say Arizona impressed me. I thought they might get beat, quite frankly. Playing Hawaii. Hawaii had the last second win over Stanford in week 0. That felt like a really tricky game for me. It was a really important one. Brent Brennan did not need to be losing that game. I will give Arizona credit. They impressed me. They impressed me in week 1. And finally, Scotty, boy, your lips to God's ears, my friend. Oklahoma State will cover 23.5 in Oregon. I would love to see it. If they had Haas Haney, I would feel better about it. And I know that I watched 3 drives of him, but 2 of them were touchdowns. He looked pretty good. I hope Zane Flores is ready for that. Maybe you can get Oregon stumbling out of the gates a bit like they did against Idaho last year. But boy, you guys tell me it's 28-7 Miami? That's crazy. That is definitely crazy. Anyway, there's your hot takes, overreactions from week 1. Thank you for submitting those on Twitter at JL Kurtz. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at JL Kurtz if you want to be a part of these in the future. I've got one more storyline for you about ESPN loving up BYU, but I need to get to the rest of your super chats here. Bulls fan 2K7. Bulls fan 2K7, his overreaction is UCF is going to learn 1-11 this year, buddy. Hey, congratulations. Justin, right? Bulls fan 2K7. Congratulations on a hell of a win, man. Just demolished Boise. Clubbed them. No Ashton Genty anymore, man. It was good stuff. I feel good for you, my friend. That's a fun way to start the year. So congrats. Congrats on that. Mando Frog 197. How big does TCU need to win to make it a good win? I don't think it needs to be dominant. I mean, certainly that would be nice. You just need to win the game. There's really nothing TCU can do in this game that's going to like control what the narrative will be about the game. Because even if it's a loss, no matter how much of a blowout loss it is, it's you know how this will go. They'll be talking about it on Get Up. They'll be talking about it on Sports Center, wherever it might be. The national Colin Cowherd will talk about it, and it will be, man, Bill Belichick was a disaster. This is a mess. Jordan Hudson is a problem. Like those takes, those are already done. They're teed up. They're ready to go if they lose the game. That's what will happen. There's nothing TCU could do to actually be the story in this game. So just go out and win. Just go out and win. And then at least people will remember like, oh, hey, yeah, I did see that TCU team looked pretty good when I watched them at the beginning of the year against Belichick. That's all you need to do. I don't think style points will count for a whole lot in that game, unless you want to say like confidence for TCU as a team. I mean, sure, all that stuff. But in terms of what people think from like a narrative standpoint, you guys know how much I love my narratives. I don't think there's a whole lot they could do to change things dramatically. Reese, what's up, Reese? Thank you for this. Reese, yeah, this is a good one to bring up. Tech, during the weather delay, well, they're looking like the Monstars out there against Arkansas Pine Bluff. Tech got a 5-star commit. How nice is that? Who else has had that happen to them? First of all, I think about from a broadcast standpoint, weather delays are like that's like your worst nightmare. Oh man, how do we fill time during a weather delay? And if that happens, and then all of a sudden, hey, we just got a 5-star commit. Now I get this as a gift from the content gods to talk about during a weather delay. That is great stuff as a play-by-play broadcaster. So I hope that helped out the Tech broadcast squad. I'm trying to, Brian Jetson, I forget that was Texas Tech guy's name. Anyway, yeah, the only commits TTU has for 2027 are 5 stars. Yeah, Tech's doing a pretty good job. This was another offensive lineman, I believe, right? Another tackle. Tech's clearly devoting a bunch of the resources to the trenches, trying to get that shored up. And what did I talk about with Baylor? They got dog walked in the trenches by an SEC roster. That's where Big 12 teams are furthest behind from the SEC and high-level Big 10 rosters is in the trenches. So go out and take care of that. The strategy makes a lot of sense to me. Okay. One last thing for you guys here before I do get to that. Please subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. Please subscribe to the channel. Just one click, like the video. All of that is great. I see a ton of you in here from Twitter. If you want to just go to John Kurtz on YouTube and click the subscribe button, that helps me a bunch with the algorithm. Is perfectly free. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo as well. If you want to drop me a line there, I will kick off the next show with your question or comment if you do. But the last thing here, ESPN loves BYU. Absolutely loves them. More than anybody else in the Big 12. 69-0 really did something for ESPN. But BYU fans have a tough conundrum here, okay? Do you believe ESPN's FPI, which on the surface, I'm sure you would want to believe. You would want to do that. Do you want to believe that ESPN has you as the best team in the league? Because there's unfortunately a real fatal flaw. There's a real fatal flaw to what I'm about to show you. So it's fatal enough that I have to laugh and chuckle here. So it's going to put you in a pickle, BYU fans. I'm just letting you know that before I show you this, okay? BYU, if you did not hear, because yes, they did play Portland State, who is a team that has given up over 100 points and not scored a point yet through 2 games this year. BYU won 69-0. Dominant in all 3 phases. Special teams scored a touchdown, which it felt like BYU was doing every week last year. They got a blocked field goal, run back for a touchdown. The defense allowed less than 100 yards of total offense. I think everybody feels like that's going to be the strength of this BYU team again, and probably riding that unit to wherever it is that they're going to go this year. But then Bear Bachmeier, I mean, that's another headline. He had 5 touchdowns. Now, not a gaudy performance in terms of the amount of yardage that he was putting up. They didn't ask him to do a whole ton, but he was great in what they asked him to do, scoring 5 touchdowns. The offense had 468 rushing yards. I mean, it's just a litany of like, all right, here's a bunch of crazy stats because we played a team about as overmatched as you could possibly get. Now, I also heard someone make the point, hey, Kalani Sitake, it was 2017 or 18 that they played Portland State and won by like 14. So come a long way since then. Okay, for sure. Just tough to know. Tough to know what to make of BYU from that. But ESPN thinks that it knows what to make of BYU after that. And that is why I'm about to show you this. So let's take a look here at good old ESPN FPI. Everybody's favorite. ESPN FPI updated following Saturday of week 1. Look at the BYU Cougars, ladies and gentlemen. BYU, number 1 in the Big 12, sitting there at 17 overall in ESPN's FPI. Elsewhere from the Big 12, Utah number 19. So that is interesting, right? Sparking that holy war debate. Let's go ahead and get that brewing before the game. ESPN's FPI would prefer BYU to Utah right now. Iowa State checking in at 23 and Kansas at 25. Shout out to the Jayhawks there after the way they have started this season. Okay. So on one hand, if you're a BYU fan, you're loving this, right? Like, hey, this is awesome. I don't know what goes into this specific computer ranking. I hear people complaining about this nearly every week, but if they like the Cougs, I've got to get on board. And if you're a Cougar fan right now, how could you not be excited, optimistic about the upside with Bear Bachmeier? And especially from where things were at like 2 months ago, right after the Jake Retzloff news dropped, and you're wondering, how is this going to work? What are we going to do? Everything up to this point has seemingly gone about as well as it possibly could have. About as well as it possibly could have. But here's the problem. Do you notice anything else about ESPN's FPI here? Okay. Do you notice anything else? Number 1 is the Texas Longhorns. Okay. I don't know if you guys watched Texas, Ohio State. My condolences to you if you did, because that was a snooze fest. We got a decent enough finish, but boy, you guys saw my tweets about it. Like, man, everybody, we have a sloppy start and kind of a boring game in K-State, Iowa State in the first half, 7-7, and you're getting crushed. Big 12 taking some shots from all the funny guys on Twitter. Man, look at Texas and Ohio State. Like, that's what a week 1 game can look like when you put 2 teams that are pretty evenly matched and know each other well, right? Texas and Ohio State just played in the playoff. Anyway, Texas lost the game, guys. They're still number 1 in ESPN's FPI this weekend. So, first of all, puts you in a tough spot as a BYU fan and what it is that you're going to make of the fact that you are still right now the top-ranked team in the Big 12. How much faith do you actually put in this ESPN FPI because of that? The other thing is, look, if you are somebody who's a conspiracy theorist on this, and I see all the guys out there, I see everybody, I'm going to go ahead and take this off the screen. I think you guys get the idea. But I see everybody who's talking about, hey, recruiting rankings, they're all juiced toward the SEC and the Big Ten. I get asked to talk about that a lot. If you are a conspiracy theorist about who the playoff committee is putting in every single year and that it's, just trying to play toward the power 2, this is going to be more ammo for you, man. Texas can lose and the SEC still stays number 1. What in the name of Greg Sankey is this? And especially if you're looking at this after an offseason where Sankey and the SEC has found all of this time to whine and moan about strength of schedule, and they have now forced legitimate change in how the committee is going to look at strength of schedule. I can understand how you would say, all right, now how did Sankey do this? How much? Because ESPN FPI was in, this is where I'll give a shout out to Greg Flugar. I believe it was him that I saw mention this for the first time. But ESPN FPI was in one of those initial presentations that it was reported that the SEC had thrown out there about what they wanted considered in terms of strength of schedule for college football playoff selection committee members. And this is the danger in it. Like, here's what this metric says after Texas goes and loses and scores only 7 points And yes, to what I saw in the chat, Arch Manning did flop. That happens, and they get to still stay number one in that. What are we doing trying to use that as a legit metric? I will just tell you, nothing personal, BYU fans at all. I don't put very much stock in this, as I don't think really many people do. It feels like ESPN's FPI just kind of exists to be a lightning rod for conversation just like this at this point. It's basically meant to stir the pot, get people talking, be able to get engagement on a graphic out there that has the ESPN logo on it. That, best I can tell, is really what this is about at this point. I think there are better metrics to go use. I mean, go check out Kelly Ford, SP Plus. There are other metrics that will serve you much better if you're trying to keep a real gauge on what's going on in college football. In this man's humble opinion, but I think a lot of people would also agree with me on that. So anyway, just wanted to, I'll try to add a little bit to the BYU hype train. All right. But also give you a dose of reality about these rankings. Okay. Let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know in the comments what you think, BYU fans. You buying it or not? You buying it or not? Or anybody else, you buying the conspiracy angle here or not? Who doesn't love a good conspiracy? Kyle Philly Pow Pow. Great name. Kyle Philly Pow Pow. More like the college football playoff eye, the CFPI. The CFPI. Yes. Yes, the CFPI. You're right. That's what Sankey's trying to make it, right, Kyle? The CFPI. That's pretty good. That's a clever one, Kyle. Thank you. Kyle Philly Pow Pow. I hope that you're here more often, Kyle Philly Pow Pow. I love the gumption. Gumption? That the word? I love the zest, the zeal. I like the effort tonight. Okay. Thank you all for being here. Please do go subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. That's ofbnews.com. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. All that stuff really, really helps. Stay tuned. I'm going to see what I can do tomorrow. I want to try and do a little watch along, perhaps, with the TCU North Carolina game, if anybody is interested in that. I would also like to, I've got a couple other ideas cooking up for some ways to do some new and different content that I think will come at opportune times for you guys that may be getting a little frustrated with having to watch, I don't know, like Dave Portnoy run out and just scream inaudibly at Ohio State fans, being your college football entertainment before the game start. Anyway, I'm thinking we'll see what we got. I don't want to overpromise, but just floating that out there. Thank you. Share the word about the channel with all your friends. Thank you for being here tonight. Enjoy the rest of a holiday weekend. Hope you have a great day tomorrow, and I will talk to you all soon.